Go ahead.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order at 6:30. Reminder to everyone that the meeting is being digitally recorded. Is anyone here for open session? Okay. Any announcements?
None.
None? Okay. We're going to go right to number 4A, the proposed changes in public road access within the Ware River watershed. Would you like to introduce?
This is Jeff from the Rutland Board of Selectmen, asked to come and speak with you tonight. Had a handout that we gave to everybody. And join us at the
May I
table.
approach?
Please.
So, I'd like to thank the board for having me this evening. My name is Jeff Stillings, S-T-I-L-L-I-N-G-S, from the Rutland Select Board. And it's an honor to be here with you tonight, and I appreciate you accommodating me. I wanted to see if I could get on your agenda to discuss with you the proposed changes, some of the proposed changes in the DCR access plan. Specifically in the handouts that I had submitted to all, the last page that's highlighted that I wanted to address was the new policy being proposed for DCR roads within the watershed. And when we talk about the watershed, there's 4 towns that are affected: my town, Rutland, yours, Hubbardston, Ocam, and Barry. So specific to those 4 towns. All DCR internal roads will be closed to unauthorized vehicle traffic from January through September. That's 9 months. The gates will be closed and locked. Some DCR gates will be unlocked and open from October through December each year to accommodate permitted hunters. Roads may be closed to all users at any time of the year for all activities because of road conditions or operational needs, such as timber harvesting, road maintenance, etc. Based on this, which was brought to our attention in the latter part of last year, we were quickly made aware that these proposals could take place at the end of 2019. My board, the Rutland Select Board, we discussed the matter, and we submitted on page 2 our position, the Rutland position, regarding the proposed access specific to locking up of the gates. And what we asked, and we have unanimous consent to, is that the Rutland Select Board, my Select Board, requested that the current access level to DCR roads within the Ware River watershed remain unchanged, and that road access to the prison camps, as we call it, remain open for lawful citizen use. That, basically, that one line in the last paragraph is our position, our town's position. That was voted on and passed by my board. Since that time, on February 18th, the town of Barry concurred with the town of Rutland's position, stating the same thing. Shortly, that the town of Barry requests that the current access levels to the DCR roads within the Ware River watershed remain unchanged, and that road access to the public land remain open for lawful citizen use. And on February 24th, the town of Ocam, these are all at their select board meetings, the town of Ocam issued their own wording and their own position, saying that the members of the Ocam Select Board writing to regard the proposed changes to public road access within the Ware River watershed. The state owns nearly half of the property in Ocam, and to further restrict access to the watershed would be detrimental to their community. And their position is that the town of Ocam requests that the current access levels to DCR roads within the Ware River watershed and access to the prison camps remain unchanged. The original meeting was scheduled in my town for February 20th, and the response was so overwhelming that they were unable to have the meeting. The room that normally can take 75 or so patrons in there had probably 300 people show up in there. And they are all adamantly opposed to the proposed regulation of locking the gates to what we know as the prison camps in there. So my purpose, gentlemen, this evening is to request 2 things. One, that we get a position from the town of Hubbardston on what your position is specific to access to the DCR roads, whether the gate should be open or closed, specific to those 9 months of the year. I presented a basic template on the front page, which is what Barry signed off on when I met with them, and it's just a very subtle language. It doesn't go into all there's many proposals in there that's going to be outlined at their next meeting on March 19th at the Quabbin. But this is specific to access to the gates. And I would respectfully request that the town of Hubbardston stand united with Rutland, Ocam, and Barry with a short initial position statement that you ask that the access level remain unchanged at this time, and that access to the public land remain open for the lawful citizen use. So I would ask that. The second thing, the last thing I would ask, is that should you concur with the other 3 towns in there and give us a position statement, on March 19th, the Advisory Commission of the Ware River Watershed Advisory Commission is going to be held at the Quabbin High School, 7 o'clock. That's the overflow meeting that they couldn't address on February 20th. That is the Advisory Commission, where you're well aware you have a seat and an alternate on there, as do we, that they would present their proposal to the DCR Commissioner, who has opined that he would like 6 months to absorb all the information that's coming in before he makes a decision on the proposed regulation. He's a new commissioner in there. Annie Goby had met with him, our senator, personally. She says he's a very reasonable person, and he wants to legitimately absorb the information in there. And he did say that the position of the towns weighs heavily on him. What the towns want in this means a lot in there. So I would like to be able to go to the meeting with the position of the 4 towns, that we all stand united. And secondly, I would like to see if Hubbardston would send a representative to stand alongside myself, the chair of Barry, representative from Ocam, and yourself, to have the 4 representatives of the town to stand united at the March 19th.
What time was that meeting?
7 o'clock. 7. Yeah.
Jeff, is this something that they try every few years and like, not try to sneak it by, but if the residents don't stand up and stand to say something against this, they just keep trying every 5 or 10 years to block access, and it's up to the citizens and the residents to speak up. And
I understand it's a 10-year, part of a 10-year plan, or it's reassessed every 10 years. I can't speak for them because I don't speak for them. So I don't know. But my instinct is
the first
that,
time they've tried this and it's been blocked.
well, good.
And
But
yeah.
my instinct is, as someone who grew up around the prison camps, I think once we see the gates locked, it'll be nearly impossible to see that reversed in my child's lifetime, for sure. There's so much. There's so many different entities that enjoy the public land that taxpayers own in there. It's more than just hunters. It's the equestrians, the bicycles, other nature. People enjoy nature. Your fishermen and the historians. There's a lot of history that's in there, in that area. So,
No, I think it's important that we get on board with the other 3 towns and stay united in this.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. I was saying before the meeting that, oddly enough, I have had several people, as they see me, come up and mention this and very strongly say, when you guys discuss it, please support the other towns, because they felt just as equally as strong, and I totally concur in that.
and if I could add one thing, Mr. Chair. Since this came to our attention, grassroots petitions were circulated in there, and within the last month, and leading up into the February 20th meeting, they have over 2,000 citizen signatures in there. 1,000 signatures alone came in the night of the Rutland Library meeting from patrons who were there, and also from the turn-ins that were generated from online traffic, Facebook. But this is the original here. There's well over 2,000 citizen signatures adamantly opposing any restrictions.
Is it representative of the other 2 towns, or is that?
Yeah, I live
is that
here.
mainly Rutland?
That's not Rutland, that's anybody who's a constituent who uses the prison camps, the
Okay.
watershed in there, because it's much more than just Rutland traffic in there.
And did you have these centrally located someplace where people could just come in and sign them?
A lot of them came from the Four Corners gas station in there, sportsmen's clubs, and then the rest were generated through Facebook traffic, and Facebook probably the most prolific
Oh, yeah.
spreading of the news in there, and the sharing of it's just a simple petition in there.
Right.
And you can see this one comes with its own coffee stain, but I mean, they all have their own stories in there, and these are real people that, you know, that are speaking their mind, and it speaks for itself
Oh,
and the
absolutely.
magnitude.
Something we can vote on now, Ryan?
Yeah, so
Yep.
you
Yeah,
can vote on it,
because this
and
was
I can
assigned.
draft a letter on your
Yeah.
letterhead. If you wanna send an official letter, we can get you all to sign electronically tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make the motion, we get on board and oppose the restrictions presented and get on board with the remaining 3 towns.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and second. Discussion? All
Sorry.
in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Question?
So I understand that you prefer to make your own letterhead? You want to generate, or is the motion to sign?
Well, the way the Barry
presented.
worded it, I would go with that.
It's up to the board.
Well, we've got one, you've got this for us to sign, so.
Template.
That's,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
worded the way Barry
yeah,
got it, right?
so definitely.
Yes, sir, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say we go ahead and
Just
sign
it,
this.
okay.
As presented.
All right, okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank the board, and would,
Are you seeking more of these? I mean, is this something
Well, we
we
could-
should consider putting out in town? A couple of places, library, the breakfast place?
I would be happy to send you a PDF version of it, and you could print and distribute it.
I know for one, the breakfast place.
Well, even though.
She's very
Hubbardston
much
Rod
behind
done.
us, and I'm sure
You
we
could bring it
could
down
put it
there.
there.
And
Put
we're,
them there.
we ask the people to bring them with you when you go to the meeting
Mhm.
at the Quabbin in there. So my second request, sir, was to see if there's a representative of the board who would like to stand with us or sit with us at the March 19th meeting at the Quabbin.
Yeah, I should be able to attend that.
Yeah.
I'll
I
attend
got to
that.
check my calendar, but I mean, yeah, that's, what, is that a
It's a Thursday night.
Thursday night?
Thank you.
If you send me the petition, I
But
can
you
get it
could
to
do it
Jeff.
too.
Get it around town.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
if
do-
you
I'll do it
can't do
before
it,
the night's
I
over.
can do it.
No, I think
you know.
hockey is done. That's the only thing, because,
No,
no, there will,
someone will be there.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you
My-
can, Jeff, I think I'm available.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my card
And
is on
maybe
the
3 of
back.
us there.
Well, that'd be nice, but, yeah. So we'll make sure that we designate at least.
I'm sure it'll be a full house.
Oh, it will be, yes, sir. Yep, so my contact is right there. I'll check it real time if you
Sure.
wanted to reach me.
Okay,
And I think if we could get me some of those,
yeah.
I'll bring them down the Rod and Gun Club too. I'm sure there's plenty of members down there that
They
would.
could put, I would
be
think
willing
maybe
to
we
sign
could have
that.
have
I'll
one in the
bring-
library.
I'll leave you some hard copies right now, if that helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And at least, I can think of 3 places now that
Yeah.
you mentioned that, I mean, the cafe,
Would it be-
library, and,
Would it be possible for me to get a signed version of this to accompany the other 3 originals?
as far as I'm concerned, it's all
Maybe
right.
sign an extra
just-
copy?
So we just sign one of these?
Yeah, just sign one and
Okay.
add it to the group.
Yeah,
Would the board be okay if I were to include these on my official page with the other 3 towns'
absolutely.
positions? Okay.
Yeah.
What time is it?
7 o'clock.
Very good.
Thank you, sirs.
You're welcome. Thank you
Appreciate
for-
this very much. Ryan, let me give you, or Pat, let me give you some hard copy.
Sure.
I also appreciate you taking me out of order.
Not a problem.
I'm gonna stand corrected on the blanks.
No, that's all right.
So,
Just email it to me and I'll get it to them.
Do you have one blank? Could we-
I would hope that I would, but I
duplicate, that we could just duplicate?
Apparently, I'm a-
You can send it to Ryan.
I'm a liar here. They go quick.
Well, that's a good thing.
They do go quick. Oh, there we go. There we go. Saved.
Oh, good.
There you go, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. Been a pleasure to meet you all.
No, thank you for your
For
effort.
having me. Tom appreciates it.
I'll take this.
Okay.
So
Thank you
Good
very
night.
much.
Thank you
very much.
Hi.
Or should we?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Have y'all
Only does
been?
this one doesn't have that many signatures.
Worth
This
the
one-
trip. It's really nice out that way.
We should
It's
visit.
interesting to see
Staff
too.
visit.
Yeah, I can make one.
Can we get copies of these?
Because my grandmother was
This
displaced
is almost
from,
just
uh,
limited to
Was she
20,
really?
because then we can go to
Holbrook's
Yeah, there's a
was
couple of
Oh.
different.
one of the towns in the
Yeah.
area where she lived, yeah.
Oh.
Either.
It was kind of, cool. I mean, it's a lot
I
of
got
graffiti. It
3
smells
here,
like
so all I
pot.
need is a few more.
But that whole
How
area is so
about,
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
fine.
But it's been
Good.
kind
10
of cool. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
3 of each,
Yeah.
3 of each?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least for me. Do you want any of those put any place, or? I was thinking the library might, and this place I live at. Maybe
Breakfast.
Diner?
a diner, yeah,
And the
Yeah, I'll
Rod
get
Gun
some
Club,
down
yeah.
there.
and the rod and gun, that,
Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Barry is here for open session just.
Oh, I'm
missed it.
sorry.
So if
Okay.
he's late.
No.
thanks.
Hi, Sandra Berry, 1 Woods Lane. I'm here for Parks. Just want to bring the board up to date with what Parks is doing in regards to replacing the playground up at Curtis Rec Field. So we wrote a CPA application and presented it to CPA in January, and it meets criteria. So it will obviously be passed on to the town for a town vote. We're working with 2 companies right now, kind of come up with designs, decide which company we want to work with, depending on what they come up with. My concern, not the park's concern, is if this doesn't go through, something needs to be done. Because, I've walked it with both these people, there's a number of pieces that are becoming unsafe. And, so if this money doesn't come through, I'm just letting you know, someone's gonna have to make a decision what to do with it. And even one of my concerns, our concerns right now is there's a slide up there that has 2 big cracks where it joins together. Because it's a molded slide, it's still kind of sturdy, but we're kind of uncomfortable making that decision whether it's still safe. So we didn't know if there was someone you could recommend. I don't know, the building inspector, if anyone has the expertise to say, yeah, you gotta pull this thing out now because someone's gonna get hurt. So we're kind of asking you guys for guidance on that, like.
What do you think would,
You shut it down, like, so
Well,
that
the
it can't
slide,
be used, and then.
yeah, so the slide that comes down.
Until someone looks at it? Yeah.
There are 2 big cracks on it, right where the joints come together, and it's because the footings have shifted over the years. It's 30 years old, it was determined. And, so, I mean, we went up there as a park, and kind of jumped on it, and, like this, it's still molded, still seemed okay last year, but just going forward, we don't want to put the town in a position of something happening. But we don't feel like any of us have the expertise to make that decision. And then if you take that slide down, then you're gonna have a gapping hole, so then what do you do with the gapping hole? I mean, it could just
yeah, snowball?
snowball.
Yeah.
Because actually to the side of that, there was a chain ladder that we had to take down, and we're like, okay, it looks okay, but the guy who came and inspected with us said, that's a hazard right there, and I'm thinking, well, it's only this far apart, and he's like, I could, apparently it can only be so far apart without some type of safety. So, that's one of our concerns, immediate concerns, and I drove by the playground tonight, and there had to have been 30, 40 kids out there.
Yeah, it was a
because
busy
the
day,
weather was
yeah.
nice. So, so I don't know who you would recommend. Go
You
take a
think
look at it to make those
The
decisions right
building
now.
inspector would look at that, or?
So I'll call him. I also know someone who in my town who did this.
Oh,
Had someone
yeah.
inspect, so I'll call and see, but I'll find you a good
Someone
contact.
to at least look at.
Well, one of the companies we're working with, he came and looked at it, and he's like, yeah, that needs to be replaced, but whether it needs to be replaced immediately, or if it can wait till June,
To see if that, yeah.
to see if this goes through. If this goes through, I think it's gonna happen quickly. I basically have been told that you'll have a new playground in 2.5 days. It's not like this huge, long process. So as long as we can get all of our ducks in a row, if this passes, we should be able to replace it pretty quickly. But our concern really is that, what about right now? Like, is it safe?
Well, if it's
enough right
unsafe,
now?
is it something that Travis could go, like, say you got the inspection, they say, yeah, it's gotta come out, Travis could go up there and remove it, fill the hole in?
Yeah, we'll figure out.
Well,
what
he
to do.
could, but then you're leaving a gap where
Yeah.
the slide connects to the other piece.
Oh, so they'd all have to come,
That's
So,
why I was asking,
like
can
in
you
a
put just
snowball.
like is there a way you can just say a sign on it, and
That's
cord it-
what I'm asking
cord it
you.
off,
just take it all out,
Yeah.
I'll have to put a
I mean,
foam
to
pit
do
on
not
there.
use.
Yeah.
it's a mattress.
Yeah.
Can you do something like that?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you because
Well, no, I know, but
yeah.
what I'm concerned about is if it is in fact dangerous at this particular point in time,
Mm-hmm.
even to do something right away while we're trying to get someone to come out and take a look at it.
Yeah.
To just close it down so that the kids aren't gonna be climbing all over it.
They're gonna
Yeah.
climb on it if it's there, they're gonna
Yeah.
be climbing on it, so.
Well, if the parents are with them and you have a sign, at least the
Have you-
little
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
I've seen many kids in there without their parents.
Well, yeah,
And the sign
but I'm
probably
thinking of
won't
the young,
last.
really younger ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but just tear the sign down.
Yeah, it'll be gone in about
Probably have to
15 minutes,
remove
once
completely.
Sanda
I mean-
gets in her car.
Yeah, and like I said, and maybe someone can go up and say, you know what, that's still pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is one molded piece, so.
How long has it been cracked, do you know?
At least 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one crack on one side, and then last summer, the
other one
spring,
showed
the
up.
other side showed up, yeah. And I haven't gone inside any of those other tube
Mm-hmm.
slides, but someone was saying that her grandson said, oh yeah, there's cracks all down inside those slides, but
Oh.
I suppose I could go down it, but, it might be a call beyond duty, but.
Maybe the whole
With a
thing should be
flashlight, right? We're
inspected.
down there with a
Yeah.
flashlight, but.
What do you said you're working on some different designs, are you gonna shoot for like the same type, same size?
Yep, we're doing our best to do that. From what we've heard from other people, we've done our best to listen to what people have to say. People don't want a duplicate of what's at the playground at
Yeah.
the school. Everyone likes this playground, and we also were saying this playground kind of attracts some older kids, not really 5 to 8-year-olds, but sometimes 8 to 12 and 14. So we really wanted to keep more of the climbing structures, more of the swings, kind of the basic playground that it is today.
So like the swings and stuff, those would be new?
Yeah,
And
we
then,
replace the
what
swings.
you're working on, yeah.
Yeah, make it ADA compliant,
Yeah.
have a swing that can accommodate handicapped children,
Mm-hmm.
have an area that can accommodate, mobility issues with children. Gonna try to put in a younger section in there too, like for toddlers, because there really
Yeah.
isn't anything for toddlers, so have at least an area for toddlers and some sensory things. I guess that's the new thing these days. They can touch and feel and hear music or make sounds and things like that. So
All
we're
within
gonna
the
hold-
same area that there is now, or will it be increased
Yeah.
in size?
No, we can't increase it in size,
Mm-hmm.
but we're thinking we can just shift things around a little bit and be able to incorporate that, so.
What kind of surface are you thinking?
Well, so that eats up so much of your money, so we've been told that the manufactured wood fiber chips is handicap compliant. So that's the cheapest way to go.
Over here, it's beautiful what they did.
It is beautiful what they
It's-
did, yeah. No, I know, yeah, that's it, what's pricey. And that's gonna have to be
Worth it.
replaced in like 10 years too. So, yeah, that's only got a 10-year life.
What's the wood
To it.
chip?
I'm still waiting for costs on that. So one of the things we were thinking is maybe having, like one of the entrances be specifically to the handicapped areas, so maybe we could do the rubber pavement for maybe a 15 by 20, for area, to have those sensory things and things for handicapped kids, and then do the rest with the wood chips. So we're trying to, price-wise, come up with the best design for those two things.
Do you have any kind of social media presence on Facebook to promote what you're trying to do up there?
No, we don't.
To inform the voters so they, and the
What-
parents and the kids, and like, yeah, we want this, and talk about it and put pictures of what you're.
So what we're gonna do is, once we get the designs come out, we're gonna pick 2 or 3 designs, we're gonna bring it to the school and be there over lunch and let kids look at it, let kids vote on which ones they like, have like a coffee can, they can put tickets in it or what have you. So, and we will advertise that, and we'll advertise, parents can come and look at that as well at the
And
same
maybe
time.
send a flyer home with the kids.
I think.
Well, everything at home now, everything at
It's
school,
pretty
it's
much-
all electronic,
Mhm.
right? So you can put it on. So we will, once we come up with a couple designs from these companies, then we're gonna take what they are recommending and then bring it forth.
Maybe we could do it on Town of Hubbardston, Ryan, or just to inform the voters of what the plan is, and so they
Can propose
just don't
it.
go to the ballot and, you know.
No,
what's
they'll
this-
know ahead of time.
Yeah.
We're hoping to have this all wrapped up the end of March, maybe the first part of April, get it into the schools, get
Okay.
the information out to the parents, because we need the parents to come support the
Yeah,
application.
absolutely. I think it's a great idea,
Yeah.
you know.
It's gotta be
really
done,
have
yeah.
to keep up with that park, it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's a beautiful spot, a lot of traffic there,
Yeah.
a lot of kids on the weekends, and, it's really a nice place.
So
Yeah,
The CPA recommended a borrow for this?
They did, so we asked for $200,000, and we had some gasps, but that being said, you
That's
know.
what they cost.
It's what they cost, yeah. So, so basically, we were looking at the 5-year. We have to get a few more numbers in from the accountant to figure out how this can be done, because we haven't paid for the library roof yet. We have a couple other projects that are being paid for, so that's what we're looking for, to do like a 5-year loan or bond. And so that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping maybe we can tweak the price a little bit, you know, maybe get down to $175. And Ryan's gonna help me work on a park grant, which is coming out the end of March. We should set a date in April that we can sit down and work on that. And for our size town, if it's approved, we can get up to $100,000 reimbursement.
Wow.
But it's it's a reimbursement grant, so you have to
Have to
fund the
front the
money
money
front,
You
first.
yeah.
gotta, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean,
If we, I don't wanna get too wonky, but if we authorize the CPA borrow though, we would have authorized the money and then we can just be reimbursed, so.
get reimbursed, yeah,
We wouldn't have to
absolutely.
borrow the full, but I don't wanna get too.
Oh, that's correct,
Yeah.
that's correct, yeah, yeah. But you usually don't find out, until like November, whether you get that grant money or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's later in the year.
But we wouldn't borrow until then, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's true,
So the immediate thing is to have someone get out there and check it out, right?
Yep, we'll
Yeah.
get that done.
Yeah, and like I said, hopefully that can be done. Couple little tweaky things with this whole thing is both of the companies I've been working with, I'm like, well, who takes down the old playground? And they've all looked at me and said, well, your town does, unless you want to spend money on someone to demo it. So they strongly said, talk to
Yeah.
your town about,
I'll do it, that's fine.
yeah, well, that's what they're saying, like, you got a bulldozer, you bulldoze it down, you pull up
that
the
out.
footings and,
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a
Definitely
DPW.
Yeah,
Resident-
so-
This was a community build over here, that was built in a weekend by everybody.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, remember?
yeah.
You know, we dug the holes.
yeah.
So anyways, that's what they suggested. And then the other thing that I just wanted to ask, and I don't know if this will be done. So my park commission runs out in June, but if this goes through, I'd like to know if you'd extend my commission so I could see this project through. That's all.
I don't see
I don't know how they do that, don't do
Is
that, I don't know.
that possible?
So you're elected or appointed? I don't know off the top of my head,
Oh, we're elected,
so you would have to run.
yes. So I'm just saying, like, you know, someone could outrun me, someone could beat me. My husband's like, you're not running anymore, you're done.
So you can run and then just resign after?
Yeah. So anyways, I didn't know how that was handled anyways.
Yeah, if,
So,
by charter, it's an elected position, so it can't be extended.
It can't be
Except
extended.
through an election. If no one's elected, that person can be appointed.
Mhm.
We'll certainly push for you.
Okay, so, all
Yeah, my
right.
vote.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm just like, really, I hate to do all this work and then not be able
Yeah.
to see the project through.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely, yeah.
That's all I have, unless anyone has questions for me.
No, any other questions?
No?
All
Thanks,
right,
Ann, very much.
great, thank you.
I'll try and get something tomorrow. I'll let you know.
Okay, that'd be great, thanks.
Okay, so we just go right to the town administrator budget presentation?
Everyone's favorite time of year. So I'm pleased to offer my third budget here with the board. Can't believe it's been 3 already, so the budget book I've given you is my full transmittal of the town administrator's budget to you per the charter, and this will be going to the finance committee. I've also have an Excel spreadsheet and all my backup work and everything, so just, I know you know this, but for those who are interested in watching this presentation, So this budget is due, and then it gets given to the finance committee, who offers recommendation, comes back to the board for their recommendation, and then to town meeting for the vote. So this is, for all intents and purposes, the first draft. And I know we've been talking about this for a couple months, so my plan is to walk through the budget book with you, and I won't be going over my entire letter. That's just a letter that accompanies this by charter. I'll get into the details of the sections rather than do it twice. So the budget is built to, trying to build it to GFOA standards, which allows the maximum amount of transparency for people to view the budget. This isn't moving, so hold on one second. All right. So this is down, so I'm glad I brought paper copies. It's really,
We might need some more money in this budget.
I swear it only happens on meetings.
Do you want a copy of it?
I got it here. So the first section is just some standard stuff. So I'm walking you through page 2, which is the table of contents. I don't think I need to explain that. The Resident's Guide to the Budget. This is designed to help people who've never seen a municipal budget. They're very complicated, and anyone watching who wants more municipal finance, I'd be happy to talk to them about how to do it. Also talks about the budget process and how to read the budget, what sections are in it. Then a community profile, so this is important for residents to understand. This is
Yep.
page 5.
Thanks.
To understand their town, and this is important because we compare ourselves to other towns that are like us, so we can gauge where we're at in terms of spending. It's very easy to understand how we spend, but understanding the bigger picture allows it to have more context, especially with our neighbors and peers. So page 6 is the budget planning calendar. We lay this out at the start of the fiscal year in order to guide the budget process because it is lengthy. So right now we are at the town administrator recommended budget. We'll be opening the warrant tonight and then forwarding this budget to the finance committee. All in preparation for the public budget hearing on April 13th and your vote on April 27th. Town meeting this year is June 2nd and town election is June 9th. Goals of the budget, the board worked with me and the finance committee worked with me to establish these goals. So we wanted to address the structural deficit in our budget, prioritize fair employee wages and benefits with any monies we had additional, and then adhere to the financial management policies this board and the finance committee worked hard to pass 2 years ago now. So those include stable reserves, generating free cash to pay for capital, how to project revenues, which I'll talk about, and how much to spend on capital, debt, and how much to keep in reserve. So page 8 is the town's organizational chart, Board of Selectmen jurisdiction. So this comes directly from the charter. Anything in blue is non-staff or elected that might have staff attached. Anything red is staff or paid employee. So page 9, 10, 11, and 12 is my budget message that's required by charter and accompanies this. It's a executive summary, so I'm going to skip past this to the board. Of course, you can read it, but all it is highlighting what's going on in the budget process. But I do want to call attention to the second to last paragraph, which gives thanks to Sandy, George, Lori, Kelly, and Bobby for their help with the budget. So budgeting is definitely a team aspect. It's called the town administrator's budget, but the entire staff and the finance team helps me put this together. I would not be able to do it without them. And then also this board, the finance committee, and volunteers who help shape this decision-making process and make sure I'm presenting what you want to see. Well, if I was presenting what you'd want to see, there'd be more money, but kind of what we can do with what we have. So page 13 is the executive budget summary. This is where I'll touch on some details. So this budget recommends a $9,448,577 budget. This is a very lean 1.44% increase from last year's appropriation. It also recommends $304,000 for capital and $100,000 for warrant article appropriations, which I'll get into. Overall, the point of this budget was to attack that structural deficit and prepare for what we know, which is a that the school revenue situation is causing us to address even more deficit based off of projections and spending. So the chart shows projected revenue. And just what to note from there is how much of our revenues are based off property taxes, and then local receipts is next, which is why I spent a lot of time estimating those. We're still using a little bit of free cash, which we're working on. And then new growth, if you notice, and I'll get into in this revenue discussion, is almost not there this year.
Have
Which is,
to stare at it a little bit just for the red to show.
so if you go to page 14, there's a little chart there that talks about where the new money's coming from. So property taxes, looking at $7,454,831. This is the maximum allowed by Proposition 2.5. New growth. We are projecting a lot of new growth for FY22, but it's not going to come in time for, there's just not a lot of building projects being finished, and we just finished a cycle of solar, and there was a lot of new growth from the Country Hen building.
Mm-hmm.
So this year is just unfortunately is a lower year in terms of new growth. New growth comes from new things that are built or added on that add value to homes. Local receipts. This is a projection you saw during my financial forecast. So how I projected our local receipts are monies that come into the town that we collect for things like permits and other revenue deals that we have with in regional agreements or excise tax. All of that is local receipts, not property tax. So we took a 6-year, finance team and I, especially Kelly, our accountant, took a 6-year look back of all of our revenue. We took out the outliers, so the high and low from every year, and then averaged the remainders to try and get a real grasp on what this might be. And that put us right at about 90% of 2019's actuals, which is where Department of Revenue says you should be. So we feel very comfortable that this local receipts number is conservative. Not too conservative to strangle the budget, but that we will hit this number, which will mean we won't need to go for more money. Free cash. Reducing the free cash this year in the budget by 20,000. So we were at 100,000. I'm recommending we drop that to 80 to continue to stop relying on free cash in the budget, because it is a bad financial practice. We're not alone in using this, and we need to wean down because it does create a large hole. State aid. We haven't been spending as much on veteran benefits. You saw declines in expenses the last couple of years. We were really high, like 65,000. We brought that down. That helped us with the budget. But now you get reimbursed for every dollar you spend on veteran benefits, 75 cents on every dollar. So we're seeing the state aid level. So this year, although we got an increase in general state aid, as they call it, we got a decrease in veteran benefits. So our total amount of state aid is down by 11,000. Not something we control. So the subtotal for the revenues is $9,513,577, and this year we need to increase our overlay for 2 reasons. One, our abatements are hitting around 50,000, and we've eaten away at our overlay reserve, so we need to make sure we fund that, and that's about 50,000. And then the appropriate way to do your senior tax work-off is for it to come from the abatements, not free cash. So that's sort of another reliance on free cash. So we're including that in the overlay. So that takes away from revenue and puts our revenue total at what we're recommending for the budget. We're balancing it. And then the following section details each of these even further. Until we get to page 15, which is the expenditure summary. So this is the money we spend. And we've broken it down for you into 6 different types of spending. So general government, public works, public safety, indirect costs, that's retirement, Medicare, insurances, school spending, and then debt. So you'll see how much of our budget is school spending, which is why we spend a lot of time talking about school expenses. The next largest is public safety, followed by public works, followed by general government, then public works, and then our indirect costs and debt. So in that new revenue discussion, the total new revenue we have available for this year's budget, so anything new from last year, dollar one new that we're gonna spend is $145,232. That's the new revenue we have. So I have a sheet for you that I handed to you. It's called New Revenues. So did a little exercise. So of the 145,000 available, let's say we split and shared revenue with the schools, so 60%, which is what our budget is about in terms of expenses, so 60% goes to schools. If we share new revenues in that way, that would be $87,000 that would go to the schools, and 40% or 58,000 would go to the towns. So just an exercise to show how new revenue should be divvied up based off the way the budget's constructed. So this budget that I'm presenting to you recommends funding the Quabbin Regional School District assessment at $121,801.70, which represents 84% of the new revenue we have. So because we know the schools are our largest expenditure and we know that they are going to need additional money, we're recommending that 85% of all new monies go to the schools, which would be a 2.5% assessment increase for them. Other large expenses include a larger than expected regional retirement assessment. It was about 8% or $22,000. And then
Back on that.
sorry, I'm back on page 15.
Gotcha, thank you.
And then the Rutland Regional Communication Center's assessment was 17% increase, which we talked about with them today, which is not sustainable.
Why is that? I mean, that's a whole nother story, but.
I'll have a formal report for you. I immediately targeted that as a no-go. It's $18,000 increase, which we can't absorb in a year after that we added a town.
Yeah.
So we're in serious discussions. We're having a stakeholders meeting this week where it's going to be like Festivus. We'll air our grievances and I'll get a better number for you. We don't expect that number to stick. So,
But even if it was 50% of that number, it's still a huge increase.
yes. It should be going down, not up.
Yeah.
If you're adding towns and degrading services, so.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of regionalizing. Save, not.
And we still haven't got the poll yet, you know.
Oh, yeah.
that they've been talking about for as long as I can remember.
I do have an update on that. We'll do that in the TA report.
So, you know,
So again, this further breaks down expenses into the town department levels. It's a 2.62% increase for town departments. On the school departments, it's only a 0.65% increase, and that's because our Monty Tech assessment, we lost a significant number of students at Monty Tech, which reduced our assessment by, from last year's appropriated number, 82,000, which is really helping us with some of the budget issues we're having. So we're able to repurpose that money, which is how we were able to give Quabbin more money than we
would they
expected.
just graduate and there's just nothing, there's not the other numbers going back in again? Is that the idea?
We received it this morning, so I had to change a lot of this morning, because I wanted to use real numbers for you. I have a meeting with them to go talk to them, so I understand why, I wasn't expecting that big a decrease, and I want to know why there aren't as many students going there. So it's good news for the budget, but I want to make sure, our first responsibility is to educate children, so I want to go understand that and we'll explain it. So insurance and indirect costs make up 4.2% of an increase from last year. The two major drivers of this is the regional retirement assessment, as I talked about, and we added cyber crime insurance to our town liability. It's time. We need to add that. Too many towns are being attacked. It's too big a liability to ignore. It's only $2,000, but as you know, $2,000 matters in these budget processes, so I've been putting it off, and I can't recommend putting it off any longer. And then debt service. Our debt service is a 2.43% decrease from last year. We borrowed for a police vehicle a while back. That's come off the books, and our interest continues to go down on some of our larger projects, so we're decreasing our debt. Next year, we'll permanently borrow for the 2017 fire truck and the 2018 dump truck, so it should either stay level or go up a little bit, and then it sharply decreases, as I'll show you, in 2023. Capital I'll get into in detail. The two warrant articles this budget's recommending is $75,000 to finish the town center engineering and design, which we talked about in the fall, and $25,000 to put into town stabilization fund, or to save. Page 17, this is a breakdown of all employees by department. So this is important for decision makers to understand how many employees do we have, how is that changing. So this budget recommends no change in our employee makeup. So there are no hours being added or subtracted from this year's budget. And it breaks it down for you. So the only thing to note, bless you, in this calculus is our public safety and DPW workers are 40 hours a week, our town hall staff is 35, and I'm 40. So when you're looking at the FTEs, it's broken out that way. So page 18 is where we can nail down a little bit. I'll hit some high points. This is where the department summaries start. So you'll see in the chart, you have the graphic and then the chart, you can see how each increased or decreased. So general government went down about 1%, public safety up 4.6, schools up 0.65, public works up a little over 3, indirect costs a little over 4, and debt down 2.43. And then on the right of that chart, you'll see what percentage of the budget that category now makes up. Just helps you understand where we're putting money. So in general government, this is listed in the chart. You'll see every department we're calling general government. So everything you can think of, from recreation to ZBA, information technology, the moderator. Okay, this went up by, went down by 0.98%. Okay, so we always chip away at general government to try and pay for some other parts of the budget. What is included in here is 2 pay plan changes, one for the fire chief and one for the DPW director. I gave you a breakout of all the salary increases and wages that we're recommending for each employee and how that changes. So the fire chief and DPW director are being moved on to the pay plan in an appropriate way. Both of them have some longevity, so we're not moving them at the end of the scale. We're moving them sort of in the beginning, in the middle beginning, so that we can continue to create some wage parity. Still in the middle of the market based off of our analysis. And then for all non-unions, we're recommending 1 step increase or a 2% raise for everyone else. The only 2 others you have to consider are the police chief and myself, who are contracts. And then another large increase in this is the 2020 presidential election is really increasing the town clerk's budget, and that's mandatory. The good news in that is she applied for and got early voting money, so we'll be getting a lot of revenue coming into the general fund to supplement that cost. So we have to outlay it, but we'll get it back. Moving into the public safety section, these are some of our larger increases, if you'll call them that. So it's a 4.59% increase in public safety, primarily contractual increases for our union employees. We're finishing up that fully funded shifts for the police department. We still have a few of those 1 officer at night shifts that we need to stop doing. This adds stipends for EMS call personnel, as the board discussed with the fire chief not too long ago. So looking to see if we can entice our call firefighters to provide more coverage at night through a EMS stipend. And then the dispatch services cost is in here as well. So if dispatch costs go down, so will this budget. It won't be as high. So the chart shows you the changes by department. So 4.26 for police, 4.07 for fire, ambulance is down 3.63, dispatch up a little over 12.5, and animal control, we negotiated those contracts at 2.5%.
Yeah, ambulance is down because of revenue.
So it's a little bit of a shell game, but they used to pay for their heat out of ambulance, so they moved it out of ambulance and into fire. So some of the fire increase is just moving of cost, it's actually level. But we didn't think it was appropriate to have the heat cost for ambulance, it should have been in the fire department's main budget. So it's just moving money, so they didn't really go down, it's level funded completely. Education, we talked about quite a bit already, so we're recommending 2.5% for Quabbin. We do believe the debt will go down a little bit, but we don't have that number yet. And then Monty Tech is down significantly. which is helping us redistribute some of the money.
Now, this is, the education part is representative of what we really feel that we can afford as opposed to necessarily what the school department is asking for. And
So just by way of
is this
example,
bottom, in other words, this is the bottom number for us?
so this provides level services in town. So although there are, you're hearing me talk about some increases, it's not really, we're not increasing really except paying people a reasonable raise and covering some deficits in the fire, DPW, and police that have been cut in previous iterations. So if you stripped all of those out, you'd have about $80,000 is what this budget's recommending to redistribute however you wanted. So right now, Quabbin's very early in their budget process, but it looks like they're somewhere between 8 and 10% of an assessment increase for us. So 8 to 10% is $400,000 to $500,000 ish. This entire budget is a $145,000 increase. So we can't afford this
Right.
because we use free cash. We have a structural budget deficit that we're trying to address. So 2.5% is way more, in my opinion, than we can afford. So, I don't want to be pejorative, but 8% would, if you did that 2 more years, you just wouldn't have much of a town. And it's not hyperbole, I'm just saying eventually you'd have a part-time town administrator, reduced fire services, reduced police services, there's just nothing left to cut.
What are the odds of it only being 2.5% though, if they're pushing for 7 and 8 now?
So my recommendation is that this is what we can afford. If there was a desire to fund higher than this level, it should be done through an operational override. Because otherwise, the service levels would be so degraded, and if you add on the deficits that we have, you'll never dig out of that hole. And there's no plan for next year. So from every discussion I've seen, this increase is going to continue. At some point, it needs to be addressed, or the budget's going to get overridden. And I know Hardwick is in a worse spot than we are right now. So they have negative free cash, about $100,000 in town reserves, and they're facing a 4% higher assessment than we are. None of the towns can afford these costs. So it's getting to the point where, and we've tried, discussions need to be had in order to decide how we're going to address the problem, because it's not going away. And each side can say, well, you should cut, or you should cut. At some point, there needs to be a fix.
And then the school closing issue comes back up.
Yes. My opinion on school closing, my opinion only, is that would help for a year or two. And then you, at a 6%, 7, 8% growth rate in assessments, you're going to be right back in the same boat. So yeah, it would give you some breathing room, but there needs to be kind of an increase in revenue and a decrease in expenses.
More
at
of
the
a
same time.
Band-Aid then, right?
Yeah, but if, say the school settles at 4%, we're obviously gonna have to make some cuts. If there isn't an override, we're gonna have to make some serious cuts elsewhere.
Mhm. About,
So I think we should be prepared for that, because, I mean, it is what it is, you know? Nobody likes to say that, but I just did. I mean, it is what it is.
so I'm showing you what the budget should be, what the town can't afford, but this is what, to keep what you have right now. This is the budget. So Public Works, the only additional monies in Public Works, this 3% increase, is culvert and road maintenance line items that were cut last year, basically adding cold patch, union and non-union pay raises. We also added $1,000 for fuel. The DPW pays for all the town fuel, and that line hasn't been increased in a long time. And police details. So if you chipped away at those deficits, it would take about 10 years to cover the cost of fuel and details fully in that budget. So it'd be good to start to address it in a small way. And then cemetery looks like it went down a lot, but those wages were moved into the DPW wages, so the DPW absorbed them, and so there was no change. And then we're supporting the cemetery operations through the capital plan as well, so they can get equipment that way. And then, so next section is indirect costs. These are the ones we have almost zero control over. The regional retirement assessment was big. We're still paying down the sins of generations gone past when they didn't fully fund this. So not only are we paying our part of this, but also the past. So that's always going to be a big increase. Regional transportation costs, we're paying for that. And Medicare, and then I told you about adding the cyber insurance. So if you look at those changes, cherry sheets, that is, we're paying a little bit more for March. We're offering a little bit more for Mart, about $2,000, so that's increased our cherry sheet expense by the same. And then the other big ones are insurance, Medicare, and regional retirement. And then
The health insurance for FY '21 went down from FY '20. Why? What's
so
retirement?
we used to have what we would call a health insurance cushion.
Mm-hmm.
So we reduced that in the last couple of years to try and cover some of these expenses.
So the cost of the insurance hasn't gone down, what we budgeted for it has gone down.
So we're reducing the cushion,
Okay, thank you.
trying to be fiscally conservative, but also understanding where we're at. So we have about 1.5 persons cushion. If one more person added themselves and there was a 3% increase, then we're right there. You usually want to have about 2 people and enough to cover the increase, because this is something we offer. If someone wants it, they get to take it. So
And if they opt out, they get a break? They get a,
we haven't instituted that.
I thought we talked about that, didn't we?
yeah, I thought that they could opt out, like say if you get insurance for your wife, you know, what does it cost the town for an employee? Say it costs $5,000. You could give them $1,000 and you go on your wife's insurance. Something like that.
It's something we could look at for sure.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the past, just to try to maybe get some of the employees to get off of the town and get on their spouses.
I mean, some may
As
not
an
be able to
incentive.
with the, if it's a union agreement, I don't know.
All of that has to be bargained.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to present some health insurance digging I've been doing, but I have been looking at these different options, because although we are not increasing in that, we are increasing, as Pat kind of said. So eventually this will be a problem we need to face, so I want to be ready for that. And some of those include cost-sharing techniques or different programs we might be able to get into. But those all affect employees and bargaining, et cetera, so it needs to be fully researched and thought out before we roll it out. So then debt, I'll get into this in the debt service section. So moving to page 22, this is the capital budget. So this comes directly from the CIPC, who presented their capital plan to you. It's a 6.44% investment in capital. That means 6.4% of our operating budget. Our goal is 6%, so we're doing a little bit more than we can. We have a little free cash to do it. So this plan includes $42,000 from the Holden Hospital Fund, which is a fund that you're aware of that we appropriate every year. This helps pay for emergency vehicles. I'm recommending we use some of the money. It's about $80,000 in there, about half of it to pay for the chief's response vehicle. And then the rest come from unappropriated free cash. So if you move on to page 23, you'll see the plan. I did not make any recommended changes except for how to fund it. Some, obviously, people at home can't see this, so the big, and I'll put this online so everyone can, the big items are a hot box for the DPW, a dump truck with plow, some equipment for the cemetery, an emergency response vehicle for the chiefs. The chief badly needs one, and he does respond to medical emergencies, so that is an important response vehicle. Repairing the library foundation, which is failing. Adding vehicles, camera and storage to the police vehicles. Fixing the bandstand roof. Finishing our computer project, which is mostly mobile vehicles for our police and fire is all that's left. And then paving the Slade building parking lot. The second part, or page 24, is our long-term proposed capital plans, or multi-years.
Such as the school roof.
Yes, so none of this is big in here except for the center school roof. nothing big, meaning it's already been decided or funded. The center school roof is on here. It says 3.6 million. We would be responsible for 60% of that to do a debt exclusion borrow, which I'll be recommending to the board for annual town meeting vote. I'll have a lot more information on that. We were in the schools the other day. Meeting about safe routes with our public safety officials, talking about how we can educate children on walking, and there were buckets everywhere. The roof is just failing. It's not gonna
It's been like
last.
that for years too.
Yeah.
And if we don't fix it in this cycle, we could get MSBA funding again in the future, but it's not guaranteed, which means instead of paying 40% of 3.6 million, we'd be paying all of it.
Yep.
So it's it feels like you have to make this decision, but I just like to educate people on what happens if we don't fund it, and it's not any better. It's the same.
So again, what was the percentage they would?
60%.
60%.
It's not exaggerated either. I took that tour also. It's awful.
So then I don't have one for her.
Want me to get one?
If you don't mind. So page 25, debt service. So the changes here from last year in FY21 is the police cruiser is no longer on there. We're recommending another 1-year ban for the dump truck and fire engine, meaning to refinance it for another year and then do a permanent borrow in FY22. Really important to note on the chart, you'll see that our debt is slowly creeping down to FY 2023, and then it drops off precipitously. So I know I've talked to you about, we have to have a workshop on what to do when that debt falls off. And I sent you some information on what might be possible there, using it to help with the budget deficit, or funding capital, or municipal borrowing.
And as part of good
So we're on
practices,
page
it's good to
25 now.
have debt in your budget.
So, best financial practices, and, people agree, disagree, but municipal finance, best practice is you carry about 3%, 2 to 5%. People normally try to be around 3%. Because once you take debt out of your budget, you'll never put it back because of these budget crises that come every year. So, if you don't have this project capacity, you're not rolling these big projects, you're always going to have to debt exclude them or override them, because there's just no other way to fund them. So carrying debt allows you to cover, like buying a fire engine without having to go to a ballot for it. You can borrow for it with the town meeting vote, or fix the Slade building, or some other things that might be something that people want to do, that are large-scale projects that you can't pay for with free cash. So that's why you want to carry it, but it's also an opportunity, if you want to cut debt out of your budget, there's some money available. In FY23, you'd have $190,000 available. That could be used for other things in the budget as well, so it's a tough decision. Then you'll see at the bottom, this of the debt services, CPA library roof borrow. We talked about that a little bit tonight. We have to pay for the library roof borrow that helped fix the library roof, so this will be part of that. We're just talking now about how to fund that. We need to do that in April, so that'll be coming back to you soon. Okay, next section, page 26, is town reserves. So you'll see where we're at in terms of our reserves. So our targets are 5% of stabilization, 1% of capital stabilization. We want to generate about 5% in our budget from free cash. We do that through projecting revenues and not spending, if we can do it. And then road stabilization, we haven't put any money in that, but it's still here. So this budget proposal, if we do put 25,000 in stabilization, would bring us up to 4.73%, or almost to 5%. So we'd have one more payment, and that would be right where we're supposed to be. And then capital stabilization's we're about halfway where we should be. We spent a lot of money on the feasibility study for the school roof. And then free cash, we are generating where we should be, so that we can pay for our, right now, our operating expenses and our capital expenses. And then the last section here is the updated financial forecast. This is page 27. So of important to note here is, if you look at sort of the bottom section, it says revenue versus expense, or just revenue and expense down at the bottom. You'll see FY21 is balanced at 0. Okay, then going across, you'll see the current deficits if we continue to increase the way we're increasing. So, last year we were about 280, 290. So this budget, a 1.44% recommendation brings us down to 240. So cutting our way out of this problem, it might happen in 10, 12 years, but it's going to take some time. And it means level services for everyone and no bells and whistles. So what's next? Obviously, as we talked about, the Quabbin Regional School District is the biggest piece of the puzzle here. They're not through their budget process. They have a public budget hearing next week, and we'll know more about where they are. If they exceed the expectations, and you're talking about what we would do. First, I would adjust some revenue projections, so maybe not be as so conservative. That might free up. I'm not trying to joke around when I say a couple bucks, but a little bit, not a ton. And then I would recommend considering an operational override, and then reducing department increases, and then reducing the capital plan and adding free cash, which is just further, basically doubling the problem, but it does get you through the year. If we were to get more money, this is my favorite part of the budget, what I would do with it is reduce free cash for the operating budget, fund town reserves, and then add reasonable services. So the last page is 29 through 39. You'll recognize as the budget summary sheet, and then every line item in detail to include percent changes so that you can look at the full transparent view of what we're doing with the budget. So this will be transmitted to the Finance Committee tonight, and my budget will be placed online tomorrow for residents to view and comment on. And that is my budget presentation.
So when do you, I mean, the school seems like it takes forever, but when do you get a more stable number from them?
So their public budget hearing is usually a number that it is a number that the budget subcommittee is recommending to the school committee. Then they have their public hearing. Sometimes they vote right there or the next meeting to approve or not approve that number. And then that's what gets transmitted to us as their assessment. So we're about a month away from, 2 weeks to a month away from their number.
Okay. Let's see what happens, right?
And just, we talk sometimes, I communicate with the board, but we did meet with the school officials, thought we had a productive discussion. Our school committee reps, the superintendent, the business manager, and Dan and Susan were there as well, had a facilitated discussion. Last year, one of the complaints from one of our school committee reps was they approved their budget, and then we came in and said it was not appropriate and we needed to change it. So this year we did it well before they approved their budget, so they know where we stand. We gave them most of these numbers, slid it across to them and said, you know, this is where we're at. And they said this is kind of where we're at, so they know that going into their process, which I think will help them understand at least where we're coming from. They'll know that before they vote. Their stance is that, like us, they've had a decrease in revenue, an increase in service costs. It's restricting the budget, and in order to provide level services, they need a strong increase in their budget, which funnels down to us through the assessment.
Any questions or comments?
No, not yet.
Sue, do you have any questions? Because you came in, midway through it.
Susan, one thing you'll see in there is I put the Monty Tech assessment at 40% in our original, and it came in a $40,000 reduction. It came in with it as an $80,000 reduction
When did that happen?
this morning.
Wow.
So I had.
Because fewer students.
I told them I would meet the bottom and figure it out. But that's a solid number.
They're just not coming in.
Okay.
So that money was distributed because Susan's been communicated with about the budget, so I reduced free cash use a little bit, added to the Quabbin assessment, and took that free cash and recommended it go into stabilization. So those are sort of the big changes.
All right, so what, so you have the QRSD assessment at a 2.5% increase, but didn't our required local contribution go up by more than that? So this number isn't gonna stick.
I think this is what we can afford.
Okay.
And I told the board tonight, and saying in this presentation, that I don't think we can afford this.
That's giving them 84% of our,
84% of new revenue is now going to the QRSD.
which is 121,000.
121,000 of 145,000 available new revenue.
Okay.
You don't need anything further from us on this then, for the moment?
No, we'll touch this again.
Yep, we're just starting, yeah. Okay, we'll move down to the opening of the town warrant.
So this is an annual vote of the board to open the warrant and invite, a lot of people are already talking about it, so they're very familiar with the process. Invite people to submit warrant articles.
What should we set for a deadline on that? It's April 6th, is that?
Yeah, in the
I
calendar.
read somewhere.
April 6th. So that's 1 week before the public budget hearing. So people can come in and talk about their articles.
So I'll make the motion to open the warrant with the deadline for articles being April 6th.
Motion made
I'll second that.
and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. We're going to skip the administrative evaluation, correct?
Yes.
Table that. Okay, we move to old business, Ragged Hill lots.
So you've seen these before. I put them in your Gmail drive. This is the request for proposal and the purchase and sale agreement to sell Ragged Hill. There is no minimum on this, as the board discussed. We didn't add any restrictions of any kind to make them fully available to get as many quotes as possible. So if the board approves this tonight, we will send these out tomorrow and start advertising for sale.
So you basically just need a vote from us.
Yep.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the RFPs for the Ragged Hill lots.
Okay, motion made.
Just one question, did we get any information on the septic, the test
Perks.
pits? Perks.
It's a good question. So 2 of them had solid perks, and
Okay.
in this RFP, it's gonna say that we have that available for information. One of them, we believe was perk, but we don't have the paperwork.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion made and second. Any further discussion or questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 And I should say Mallory did a good job digging that up and attaching that to the RFP.
What year did you remember what year they perked them?
Was it 10 years ago?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember when they did it.
That's a guess. But
Yeah,
about 10 years ago.
Ballpark.
Okay, move down to the TA report.
All right, so in your packets, well, it says budget update. I don't think I need to do that again. Did that one at length. Department reports. So our paramedic, Taylor Wilkinson, is now firefighter paramedic. She graduated from the Massachusetts Department of Fire Services Academy this week. So that adds a capacity to our department. We're very proud of her. Put that up on social media, so that's a good thing for the town. This month we also promoted Christina Sutcliffe to a full-time position. So Iris Rivera, who we are sharing with Rutland, is no longer working for us. So we had Christina, who is our planning board clerk, step in and fill both positions. She's been doing it for about a week and a half now, and she's been doing great. So this is a temporary position to see how it's going to work, and we agreed, the Rutland Town Administrator and I, that splitting the position. We tried to be creative and tried to make it work, but we don't think it's going to.
Mm-hmm.
So this is another attempt for me to add staff and open the doors, and it's been good so far. We've had the assessing office open a lot more. We're just there's not such a steady flow of people that she can't get her planning board work done, so it's just creating an efficiency, and she's very efficient, so that helps.
Okay.
In financial management, I've been working hard with boards, committees, and departments as I've been talking about these old accounts that have these cash reserves in them, especially revolving accounts. So I'll have a good report for you on some monies that we can recover from those stale accounts and generate some free cash that way, so we can do more road work and capital projects. And then we've also fully converted the budget, as you've seen. You'll see the line items that were created from SoftWrite to Vadar, which will allow for better budget presentations. And next year, so we did our best to translate last year's budget to this year's budget. It's solid. You'll be able to tell where the money went. Next year we'll be using the same format, so it'll be even easier. And I really appreciate the staff's work on that. It was a little confusing as money got shifted, but we've made sure that you understand dollar to dollar how we converted from SoftWrite to Vadar. And that's reflected in the percent increases as well. Capital projects, all of our computers are now installed, which was quite the project. And then the only thing we have left is our mobile computers and our ambulances and our police department, which is in my budget presentation to you as a request for next year. Chief Hayes and I met with our engineers to finalize the design finally for the exhaust mitigation system, so that should be going out to bid by the end of the month. And then our green communities, I can't pop it up for you, but in your packets, we will be working on, from the Green Communities grant, so no cost to the town, LED lighting retrofits in the Slade Building, the Clark Library, the DPW, weatherizing the library, the fire station, and the DPW, and then we're working on replacing the library boiler with that money as well, or we'd be working on a electrical upgrade for the heating system in the schools, all of which will generate savings in operating for all of us. So more to come on that, because there'll be a final approval. And economic development. So you'll notice in the budget there's now a budget for economic development. So last year we had an economic development coordinator that we shared with Hardwick and other Quabbin towns. So this year the Economic Development Committee has asked for their own budget, and they're paying for it through selling advertising on those Welcome to Hubbardston signs. So they're going to bring in $5,000 to $7,000, and they're asking for $4,500. They want to reinvest that in continuing the Quabbin Country website, so it'll continue past the grant, to have a coordinator to run that and organize special events in the region, do some local advertising, and create some promotional materials for Hubbardston. So very small investment, but we want to keep the economic going, even though we don't have the grant anymore. We thought this was the best way to do it, keeping it local in our volunteers' hands. Lastly, ton of employee recognition. You heard Taylor already. I talked about Taylor. Attached to this report is a memo or a report from Chief Perrin about an incident that happened on February 17th where there was a missing juvenile. Our public safety officials coordinated a search for this this young gentleman, and had to coordinate with state police for air and all different assets. Everybody stayed safe, to include the person that was missing. It was just a great example of how professional our public safety officials are and how quickly they can react. We're getting real-time updates from them, and that report is detailed and will be made public tomorrow. But Officer Fort, Officer Fontaine, and Firefighter Casilla from the fire department all were noted by Chief Perrin for their excellent work that night. And then, lastly, tomorrow is the presidential primary, and last week we had early voting, and our new town clerk, Lori Reed, has done an excellent job coordinating all that. Tons of training for the staff. Everything was very smooth. Joyce came in. We all know how professional Joyce is and how good at it. She came in to work as an election worker, which is good. I got to yell at her again. I didn't yell at her. I'm petrified of her. So she came in to answer any questions that Laura might have, and Joyce told me that there was nothing for her to do. So that's excellent when you're transitioning from a longtime clerk to another. That's good to hear. So come vote tomorrow. It's important. And we got 4 more elections, so you got plenty of time to vote this year.
Okay. We have some police policies to review.
So I am transmitting these to you from Chief Perrin for you to review and to be commented on or approved or reviewed by the next meeting. Unless you need more time. But no action needed tonight.
So we don't have these yet?
They're in your folder under policies to review.
Oh,
It's its own folder, so it wasn't confusing.
okay.
There's 6 policies in there, so if you need more time to review them, it's fine. He's just transmitting to you as part of this process to update them.
All right. So we'll move on to the...
Is that in this meeting or is it in the Gmail?
It's in the Gmail.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's in the meeting under a folder called policies to review.
And we'll discuss this at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Appointments, resignations.
So we got a slate of election workers and then a resignation, a constable resignation.
Do we need to take them individually, or can we take it all at once?
Well, I'll make a motion to appoint all the election workers as presented, and Christina Sutcliffe, a municipal assistant.
Motion made
Second it.
and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
And I'll accept the
Yes.
oh, yeah, sorry.
We got to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I'll accept the resignation of Pamela Henning as constable.
As a motion?
Yes, as a
Okay.
motion.
Second it.
And second, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes, okay. We have a wage authorization for Christina Sutcliffe.
He's notifying you of her wage. So we classified the municipal assistant as same as a assessing assistant. She's being paid at that rate.
So there's nothing you need from us on that
Just
particular.
waive your notification.
To waive the
I'll waive the
notification.
notification for Christina Sutcliffe, a municipal assistant. Make a motion.
There's a motion.
Second it.
And second, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. We have some minutes.
I don't think I was there on the 3rd.
What?
They're not in there anyway.
Yeah.
They were.
Oh, then we can't do it.
Right.
It was
All
not,
right, got to-
we knew there wouldn't be enough to vote on
Okay.
it, so.
Committee updates, we'll pass on that.
I just have one. I'm playing the role of Dan.
Okay?
In your packet, there is some good news. Not great news yet, but good news. So in 2000, so the town center project is slated on the tip for 2023. It's locked in. We talked to TEC. They said they'll get everything done to include the public hearing that's this week, and then followed on. It should move much faster. They should get that done by the end of the year, maybe early next year. All the legal work that needs to get done.
That's for the town center?
Yes.
Is that also, this public hearing, is that also going to be for the 68?
Nope, just town center.
Because I had someone ask me if there was going to be any kind of a public meeting in terms of, for the abutters, et cetera, and they were curious when the 68 was going to be started. Is it springtime? Is that our understanding?
We're still tracking that it's going to be springtime. But the public hearings are over. It's
They're
fully
over.
designed.
Okay, I'll pass that back on, okay.
Not that they can't comment or I can't get them information. I don't want that to
Mhm.
sound like there's no more info, but
That's for 68 North.
68.
Yeah, yeah.
So the town center project in 2022, there's a large Leominster project. This is the only project on the tip for 2022, $10 million, and it's in danger of not being ready. So we've been identified as one of the projects that will be ready, and that would move to 2022.
That's when you and I went and you
Yes.
did your presentation, yeah.
So I don't want to begrudge another town, but I worked for this one, so there's a chance that this project would happen in 2022, not 2023, 2023 at the latest. So it's a little bit of good news.
Yeah.
When I saw the tip come out, I thought one project, $10 million project is pretty complex. There's a chance that it might move up, which is why we've been saying, no later than, hoping that it might move. So
What's the value on our project?
it is sideways right now, but $4,869,000.
We can upgrade.
Right?
That's right.
We get a little money to
Adeline.
play with.
So we go to so the public knows, the MPO meetings, we advocate for this. They know we want to get this done. They're sick of hearing from us, so that's good. We want that. We know, Hubbardston, you want to move it up, so that's what we're going for.
All right. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, nothing. Public press, question and
I
answer.
got one
Oh,
question. What's
okay.
the status on the highway truck. Did they receive that yet?
It's supposed to be here any day.
But I mean, that was supposed to be here in December, right?
Yeah.
Originally, what's the holdup?
I don't have the details on it. I do know it's supposed to be delivered this month, and I can get you
It
that.
seems like a huge delay. I mean,
It is.
I don't know if there was anything in the contract on delivery or whatever, but that's quite a delay. I mean, the winter's over.
Yeah, good thing it wasn't a substantial winter, or if we had a truck go down.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's not over yet.
Originally, it was
March
supposed
can
to be
kick
here
in as in
in
April
December,
and May.
it's-
I'll
You
get
know,
you
I mean-
a better answer than that.
And it's not like it was a brand new truck, it's an older,
No.
you think
Where,
it should
do
be
you
ready to
know
roll.
where it was coming from, or
Not off the top of my head.
can you get me that information?
I'll get it for you tomorrow.
You also said earlier tonight, you said you had an update on the tower.
I did, that's right. So talking to our regional dispatch director, he was in communication with State 911 today. So we need to do a review, but we want to make it big enough so that maybe we can add cell service to it.
Absolutely.
So the original grant was only for it to be big enough to hold the dispatch equipment. Some of the delay has been us trying to find the right engineer to say how big it needs to be, put a couple providers on there, which would also provide revenue to the dispatch, hopefully reduce this very high assessment. So we are working on making that one of the solutions for cell service. So we're not quite there to say it's gonna happen yet, but it looks good.
Where's it gonna be placed?
Where the proposed senior center building is gonna be across from the pallet.
Oh, on the property,
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
property
yeah.
for the building, okay.
So we need to go look, because the pad's gonna be a lot bigger, make sure that it still fits within the place, and then we need to commit our DPW to help clear the land, which I'm sure they would,
Mhm.
which they will do. So, looks good. Not quite there, we've been working on it a while, we're hoping to have some good news in the spring about getting that finished.
All right, motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion made,
8:55.
second to adjourn, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.